This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Nermeen Sheikh with Amy Goodman. Democrats have reportedly begun tentative negotiations with the White House just days before funding for the Department of Homeland Security is set to expire on Saturday, threatening with another partial government shutdown. Democrat lawmakers are calling for reforms on federal immigration enforcement as part of a deal to negotiate more funding for DHS. Among their demands are requiring federal immigration agents have judicial warrants when carrying out raids, an end to racial profiling, and new guidelines for use of force. Though many progressives have argued this falls short, demanding agencies like ICE be dismantled or abolished. Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer and House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries said in a statement late Monday, Republicans shared an outline of counter-proposals that, quote, included neither details nor legislative text. The initial GOP response is both incomplete and insufficient in terms of addressing the concerns Americans have about ICE's lawless conduct. The negotiations came in the wake of the fatal shootings of Renee Good and Alex Pretty, killed just weeks apart in January by federal immigration agents in Minneapolis. Last week, President Trump signed the consolidated funding bill hours after it passed the House, ending a partial government shutdown. The legislation included only a 2-week extension of funding for DHS.
This all comes as the heads of ICE, Todd Lyons, Customs and Border Protection, Rodney Scott, and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, Joseph Edlow, are set to testify before the House Homeland Security Committee today. For more, we go to Washington, D.C., where we're joined by congressmember Joaquin Castro, Democratic representative from Texas, whose district includes San Antonio. Congressmember Castro recently visited ICE South Texas jail in Dilley, where he met with 5-year-old Liam Ramos and his dad, Adrian. He helped free Liam and his father from Dilley, escorting them back home to Minneapolis. Congressmember Castro, welcome back to Democracy Now! If you can talk about your experiences in Dilley, the number of children, it's shocking, and hearing families yelling "Libertad, Libertad," liberty from the jail, and how that relates to the upcoming vote. I mean, the Department of Homeland Security will, run out of, not run out of funds, because they have an enormous amount of funds, but you have to vote on whether or not to continue their budget.
Well, I was in Dilley in late January and then back again to help release Liam Ramos and his dad. And the best way I would describe the Dilley facility is that it's a kind of trailer prison. There are 1,100 people there. None of them have committed any crime because you're not sent to Dilley if you've committed a crime. And they're in 12-person rooms, multiple families, up to 12 people in a single room. There's cameras everywhere. Their movements are controlled. It's like prison where when you come in, you leave your belongings, they're inventoried. When you walk out, as when I walked out with Liam, they give you all your stuff back. And what I saw with Liam was what I saw with a lot of the kids. They've been traumatized by the experience. He wasn't eating very well. He was sleeping a lot. He was despondent, missing home, missing his mom. That's the case not only for him, but for a lot of the kids that are there. And I think the most shocking thing to me going through there was when I asked one of the folks who worked there what the youngest person there was. And he told me eventually that it was a 2-month-old baby who was in basically that trailer prison. And so, you know, we asked people also, we were trying to get a sense for, well, how do these people end up here? We asked them how many were seeking asylum, how many had court cases, how many had used the CBP-1 app, which was supposed to be an orderly and efficient way to apply for asylum and then come into the United States rather than rushing the border. And there were a big chunk of people who had used that app, for example. And so you have a lot of people who did things the right way and now are shell-shocked to find themselves in a trailer prison in rural Texas and on the verge of being deported, even though they followed the government's advice for how they should apply for asylum and come into the United States.
Congressmember Castro, if you could talk about, first of all, how Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott has been collaborating with Trump in these efforts. And you've called, in fact, for ICE to be disbanded and have also joined demands for a Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, to be impeached. So if you could talk about that.
There really is no separation at this point between Governor Abbott in Texas and Donald Trump and the federal ICE. The reason I say that is because for the first time in Texas's history, Greg Abbott has deployed the Texas National Guard into detention centers, including into Dilley, where kids are imprisoned. And so he's having the Texas National Guard do back office functions related to deportation. So what that has done is freed up more ICE officers to go into the streets of Minneapolis, to go to Chicago, to go to Los Angeles, to go even into San Antonio, where ICE agents just a few days ago basically barged into a home without presenting any warrant at all and without explaining what they were there for. And so Governor Abbott is a supporter of this. He's enabled it, and he should be asked about that. And with respect to the budget, I guess folks have to understand that in the quote unquote big beautiful bill not too long ago, the Department of Homeland Security got $150 billion extra dollars above and beyond their annual budget. ICE by itself got $75 billion extra money. Yeah, so nobody wants a government shutdown, even for a single agency, because if there was a shutdown, it would only be the Department of Homeland Security. But money is not an issue for them. They've got plenty of money well beyond their annual budget. So I hope that Republicans will agree to what I would consider, and I think most Americans consider, basic safeguards that help protect constitutional rights and human rights of Americans. But right now, Republicans, the only thing that they're willing to do is to follow Donald Trump. And they're stubbornly refusing at this point to do anything else.
Congressmember Castro, there are also Democrats who join with the Republicans. So what do you say to your fellow Democrats? And also, as we talk about Liam Ramos and his family, you've said the Trump administration's filed for the expedited deportation of Liam and his family. People might have thought this family, you know, the situation is done. They're together again in Minneapolis. DHS said on Friday it's seeking a deportation order for Liam. They have a pending asylum case. If you can address both, Democrats in Congress and then the family.
Well, to my Democratic colleagues, I would ask folks to consider first visiting these detention centers, which are actually prisons. I went to another one in Pearsall, Texas, called the South Texas ICE Processing Center, which is adults only. But if you go in there, it is a prison. And again, the vast majority of people have committed no crime at all. And are sitting in this prison. But most of all, I would ask them to consider what's going on in the streets, talk to the families that have been affected, the individuals that have been affected by really what has been a lawlessness by ICE. Going into homes with no warrant, going into businesses with no warrant, roughing people up in the streets, obviously killing 2 Americans. And I think, you know, we can't act like it's business as usual and continue funding them with their annual budget when they're operating beyond the law. With respect to Liam's case, you know, Donald Trump has this obsession or this grudge against certain things. In Georgia, for example, he continues to look for the ballots that he believes cost him the election in 2020. In the case of Kilmer Obrego Garcia, he keeps trying to deport this man again, even though Kilmer's back in the United States and hasn't committed, you know, any other violations. And it looks to be the same thing with Liam Ramos, is even though you've got a 5-year-old kid who's already been deeply traumatized by this experience of imprisonment, he's going after him again and picking on him in the same way that he bullies other people. And unfortunately, that's what we're seeing now. I'm glad that the judge a few days ago granted a continuance to the family to make their asylum claim. And I hope that ultimately they'll be able to stay in the United States.
And before we go, Congressmember Castro, we wanted to get your response to the latest news about Jeffrey Epstein, the late convicted sex offender. If you could respond to the latest news, Ghislaine Maxwell pleading the fifth during House Oversight Committee hearings yesterday, and where you think this is going to go.
Well, I saw the news yesterday that Ghislaine Maxwell pleaded the fifth, and the Fifth Amendment is an important constitutional right. At the same time, the evidence seems to be overwhelming that she and so many others, elite members of society from government, business, academia, and other industries, were essentially operating beyond the law and abusing young children. And I don't mean to be glib by this reference, but movies at this point is the only way that I can describe what we're reading and seeing. This really seems to be some kind of cross between Eyes Wide Shut and the movie Hostel. And the reason I say that is because there are references to torture, to the mass purchase of sulfuric acid. It's clear that there was what appears to me some kind of evil club of people who were invited to participate in this ugly debauchery. And ultimately, I will say this, I hope that it happens now. I'm glad that there are 3 million documents that have been released. Everything should be released, except for the victims' names. I believe that all the other names of people involved should be released, should be unredacted, whether they're Republican or Democrat, whatever their income or their station in life. If they did something wrong based on what we see in those files, they should be held accountable. So whether it's now or when Democrats take over the House, I believe next January, there has to be a rigorous and serious effort to hold people accountable for their actions. Subpoenas, bringing people in, making sure that folks are held accountable for what they did.
Representative Joaquin Castro, thank you so much for joining us, Democratic Congressmember from Texas.
Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.